Hey, welcome back. Some coffee here. Cheers. I was planning on being outdoors today, but it's around, I don't know, about an hour ago it was around -5, -4 with the wind chill out there. So I opted to cancel that and do an inside video. So since it was spur of the moment, I figured I would go over this survival advent calendar my wife got me for Christmas and what came in it. Because this wasn't my plan, I did not go through and make a list of what was out on each day for the 24 days. That's on the forum. If you want to see it, go see it. If not, whatever. So I'm just going to discuss it and kind of break it down into what I feel is useful and what I don't feel is useful. I want to start off by saying these kind of survival kits, the store-bought stuff, I'm not a huge fan of, mainly because this stuff is meant to be universal and the elements in your environment is not universal. Just here in the United States, for example, some of the stuff that you would put together in your kit if you lived, say, in Texas or New Orleans, or Louisiana or Texas, or even, Arizona, is not going to be close to what we're going to need, especially in the winter, up here in New York or Vermont, Maine, Montana, any of the places that get really cold weather and snow. So I'm not a big fan. I'm a fan of, if you're going to do it, do some research, buy stuff you know you're going to need, test it, make sure it's going to work, test it in your yard, test it in a controlled environment so that you know it's going to work when you need it. And also, I'm not going to call this a survival kit, I'm going to call it an emergency kit. Because, like I've said, don't want to really do a bunch of survivalist type stuff. I'm calling it an emergency kit. If you were to get lost or you were hurt and you needed to wait a night or two for someone to come and get you, because in these day and age, there's cell phone coverage almost everywhere, so I'm not getting into it, and don't get me started on Altoid survival tins. We'll be here for days. So I'm just going to call it an emergency kit, and we'll go over what I feel is useful and what isn't useful, why it's useful, why it isn't. All right, so let's get started. Okay. So the first thing that was open was the case, and I like the case. It's actually decent, sturdy, solid plastic. It's got some padding in it. You can use this as an emergency kit. You could use some of these items, but considering if you're going to be in an area where you're not familiar with, you should be carrying a backpack with some kind of a decent first aid kit and stuff like that. A little bit more than what would be in this. I'm not going into crap hits the fan scenarios. It's not what this channel's about, so we're not going there. Would make a nice little fishing kit, and also this would make a pretty nice first aid kit, really. You could put your first aid items, bandages. You could fit a tourniquet in here, take the padding out. You could fit a chest seal wound bandage in here, some medicines. You could fit in here, a couple of baggies if you had to make water potable. Speaking of potable water, it's another reason I'm not real super fond of these type of kits, because there's one thing you might need. I mean, you could get by a couple of days, but if you needed water, stuff like this doesn't have any way for you to be able to boil and make water potable. So you would also have, even with this kit the way it is, you would have to then add some water purification stuff. Because I don't remember if there was anything in here like that or not. I don't believe there was. But anyway, this would make a nice first aid kit. You put, like I said, you can put your bandages, first aid items, your medications, water purification tablets, and stuff like that. So that would be really nice. We'll make a little pile over here for definite useful, maybe, and no. Okay, another thing was the flashlight. It didn't come with a battery, so I threw a battery in there. It's AA. It's not super bright. I know it's daylight out here, but it's not super bright, but it's bright enough that if you're in an emergency situation where you were hurt or lost and you needed the light at night to see to make a fire or something, it's definitely functional enough to do something like that. It does have a little clip for what that's worth, but it's definitely functional. Paracord survival bracelet. I'm very much for keeping some cordage in your packs or your bottle bag kit, your haversack. Throw a little bit in your pocket. And these kind of bracelets, if that's your thing, there's nothing wrong with them. I have some of these I made. They just have buckles on them, no fancy doodads that I will wear on occasion if I'm going into an area I really don't know. Or I might even just throw it in my backpack for additional cordage. This does have a little button compass that I have tested with my phone compass, and a compass I know actually works, and it's not accurate. You're not gonna, it's gonna get you, if you know where a road or something is, it can get you there if you know the road is north or south or something. But if you were trying to use this with a map, it's not going to work because it's not true orientation for north, because north is this way and this is pointing this way. So I have not tested it. I would imagine it might work. Test it out sometime when I can get out into the woods. And it has a whistle. So the whistle is the whistle and the cordage make that functional. It also came with its own whistle, which, whistles are a good thing to keep. You can signal if you're hurt. Hopefully somebody will hear you. They're also a decent thing, if you're in a group, get a little separated, or one of your party gets separated, you can blow on the whistle and they can answer you and you can go get them. So whistles are always a good idea. I keep them. I do keep one of these in my pack 90% of the time. I have certain packs that I don't really have one in. Throw this in your first aid kit, then you'll always have it. This is the poncho. I'm not sure if you can see this, but this thing is about, the packaging is thicker than what the poncho material is. So yeah, I'm not even gonna. It would probably rip if you were putting it on. This is part of the reason why I say these kits are touch and go. No, useless. This is a waterproof cell phone bag, and it's got some padding in it. For its intended purposes, I don't see any practical use for it. If you're in a situation where you're hurt or injured, and I have no need for this, even in a survival situation, it's going to kind of be pretty much useless. The only use this might have, if it doesn't leak, is to be able to use it to make potable water. You can't boil it or anything. You can't probably put anything hot in there; it'll melt. But you could probably use water purification tablets to purify some water, at least a little bit, to be able to drink. So we'll put this into it might have a use. Space blanket. Anybody who's into the outdoors should know what these are. You know that they can come in handy. Well, I mean, hopefully you don't know, but they do come in handy. The reason I say hopefully you don't know is hopefully you've never been in a situation where you're lost or hurt in the woods and had to depend on something like this. Because while it can be very handy. They can rip very easily, especially something out of a kit like this that's probably, very budget friendly. These were probably like $100 for $5. So, I forget the name of it. They would probably come in handy if you threw a candle in your emergency kit, or a decent candle. I forget the name of it. The little furnace where you light a candle, you wrap one of these around you, and it will reflect the heat. So I'm going to put this in. Yes, definitely are useful. Carabiners are always useful for anything from helping set up a shelter to, if you had to help in different traps. So, definitely useful. This is a wire saw. It's one of the really budget-friendly ones, of course, because it comes in these little kits that, you can get these kits for like $10 on, through Amazon or even maybe Walmart or something. So you can't expect any of this stuff to be top of the line. That's just the way it is. I have bought some of these from Walmart, and my wife has gotten me a few of them, and they are actually functional, and they do work. Once it gets where I can get out there, I do want to go out and show this in use, that it can be used. I don't know if I would want to try to get through some 2, 3, 4-year-old seasoned oak or hardwood with it, but in a pinch, it'll definitely cut through, some maybe 5, 6, maybe even 7-inch down wood to saw it up into more manageable, pieces that you could split or whatever with your knife. I'm just laughing. So I'm gonna put this over here, and yes, it's kind of useful. This is a little pill bottle. It doesn't want to open. Okay, well, I'll have to open this at a different time. Definitely to keep some of your medications in. Anything that you would take, like painkillers, antihistamines, or whatever like that, for bug bites, you would have in an actual first aid kit. So putting some of your personal medications in something like this would be a good idea. So definitely useful. These are little fire starters. I've tried these in the past with a ferro rod. Sometimes they'll light, sometimes they won't. But if you have a lighter, put a lighter in your little emergency kit, and these do work. So we'll put them over there. Compass, just like the button compass. This one though, like I said, this one isn't even pointing that way. When you lay this down, it's actually pointing this way. And like I said, north is this way. So this would get you lost. So no. I forget what this is. Oh, this is the strap for something that was in there. I think it was for the phone case. Yeah, this is the strap for the phone case, which could be used as some kind of cordage if need be. So we'll put that in it might have a use. Cordage. This is probably like 10 feet. I haven't measured it, but it's cordage. I always say that you should have some cordage in your backpack, or if you are making an emergency kit, throw some cordage in there. I would go with a minimum of 25 feet, but every little bit would help. So that's definite yes. We'll stick with some cordage. This is just a clamp. You know, it could always find a use for it. It does have cordage and these two little carabiners on the end. So the carabiners could be used if you had to build some kind of a shelter. You know, and the cordage, of course, you don't use it for tie-outs or in an emergency, you know, boot laces, stuff like that. So it's got cordage and carabiners, so it goes over there. This is a little small fishing kit. The line's probably not very good, but in a pinch, if you're hungry and you're going to be there for a night or two, and you're not injured to the point where you could whip yourself up a stick and you could catch some fish. So definitely useful. This is a emergency card. I think I have a video up somewhere me showing that the edge will actually work, the little knife edge. This has got a burr on it, so before you take this out, put it on your sharpening stone to just take that burr off of it. The saw is kind of functional. The problem is, as you're using it, the back of this cuts into your hand. So to make this a little more functional, you could take a file or some sandpaper and just kind of round this out, but it's still going to be very painful and uncomfortable. The wrenches and stuff like that, I don't know. Maybe you want to try to make some with a wooden Flintstones cart. But it is somewhat functional, so we'll put that over there. Next we got, this is a water bottle holder for your belt. It's like a loop. I didn't bring a bottle. What you do is you open this up. It's got a clamp on it. And you open this and you put this around the neck of your bottle so it's snugged up, and then you clamp it back on, and then you put this on your belt. I don't know really, I mean, for what it's intended for, I can't see myself or anyone really needing it. But if we get inventive and use our imaginations, you know, along with carabiners, you could classify this as one and help use it. You know, you could put a shelter stake in that you made and kind of like loop this around it, and then put your cordage through here to use it as, you know, part of a tie out. Extra work, but it would be somewhat functional. This is just a keychain. Sure, you can find some kind of a use for it, but put it over there. This is another keychain. It's got a Phillips and a flathead screwdriver set on it. Could possibly have a use if you're building your Flintstones car. So maybe. I personally wouldn't have that. This is a ferro rod, and it does come with a scraper. I've mentioned in a couple of videos, I think, that these scrapers do work, but you should take a few minutes, and on this back edge, it doesn't have the can opener. I mean, you could use this part, but I don't suggest that because these little teeth will tear your ferro rod up faster than it should. So, use a straight edge. And I suggest taking a piece of sandpaper and just sand the paint off of the back of this, and it'll work a lot better. Trust me. And I always say I always tell people at least 2 forms of a way to start a fire. 3 is best: matches, a lighter, and a ferro rod. Because a ferro rod works in the rain, wind, snow, and if somehow this got broke or something, I could still find a way to make it work. So definitely functional. This little pen does write. It does write. And it's pretty hefty. It's got a glass breaker on the end of it. Now, my problem with these is if you got to break glass like this, hopefully you've got some gloves with you, because if you're trying to do this with bare hands, you're going to get cut and you're going to need a first aid kit. And you're probably going to need more of a first aid kit, because as you can tell here, this has nothing for first aid in it. And a number one thing for survival or in an emergency is having some first aid stuff. Like I said, that's why I'm not a huge fan of these. If there's a need, I can always put a list together on the blog or the forum on some stuff that should be in a first aid kit. I shouldn't have to, but anyway. And also, it's hefty. It's definitely a lot heavier. It's made out of metal, probably some sort of aluminum. But if I was trying to break like a car window, if my car went off the road or something, and I needed to break the car window to get somebody out or get myself out, I don't think this is strong enough to be able to do that. But you never know. If you are like me, and if you're in areas you're not familiar with, and you do carry like a Right in the Rain tablet, then of course this would be useful. So this is kind of up to you. I'm going to put it in the maybe pile. The eating utensil. It's not sharpened on the fork end. The little serrations would probably cut some meat, but you're not going to stab it. You'd have to sharpen this up. Of course, the spoon's going to work. It's a spoon. It's not very deep, so eating soup, you might just better drink it or something like that if you're made of soup or a broth with some vegetables or whatever. It does have a can opener and a bottle opener in one. Problem is, using it as a can opener, why would you need a can opener in an emergency or situation? The reason I'm going to put this in the maybe is this is probably some form of steel. I don't know if it's a stainless steel or not, but it's painted. This is not like a baked on coating. So I'm not sure I would trust it because it's probably not a food grade paint. So if it starts to chip, granted, it may not hurt you, but it's paint. Nobody wants to eat paint. So I'm going to put this into, it's up to you. And the final thing is, dun, 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 the knife, which has a little razor blade back here on the back of it. So if you were to try to cut some plastic, that it would work. If you were to put a contractor bag in your emergency kit to use for an emergency shelter, you could use the razor blade to cut the sides to open it up to make a shelter. It also has a glass breaker on the end of it. It's got a clip, and it's got a quick opening device on it. It's got a liner lock. I have not used this knife at all. It is a little on the weaker side. Would I trust this in a pure survival situation? Hell no. When you squeeze it, the handle closes. I don't know if you can see that, hopefully. So it's not going to take any kind of real hard use. Is it sharp? I have not sharpened it, but yes, it's actually pretty sharp. Is it shaving sharp? Yeah, it is. It's sharper than another knife I'm going to talk about in a minute. It's not comfortable in the hand really, and these clips on knives just sort of frustrate me a lot. They're always in the way and very uncomfortable for the most part if you're actually trying to use the knife. Use. So, it's not ultra light. It's got some weight to it. There's no springs or anything in it. It's not an auto knife. Would I use this as a camp knife? Yeah, probably not for food prep because again, it's got the paint is not going to be food grade safe paint, but that's your call. But you know what? I'm going to put it in the functional category because I definitely feel it would be functional and useful if you needed a knife. This, I picked this Ozark Trail knife up because I heard a bunch of people talking about them, but I never seen anybody using it. And for me, these days, to make a decision on a knife purchase, even if it's just, $10, $11 knife, unless I try not to be whimsical with my knife purchases anymore because I've just had issues in the past of breaking or damaging the knife. So I kind of, if there's a lot of people talking about it, I might get some interest. Generally, not so much anymore. But the one thing is, I want to see it in use. I want to see what it can do. And another one, it's got the thumb stud on there to open it. It is not even a liner lock. It's just got this little thing here, a little stud that locks the knife in. It's very light. I haven't used it much, or I have actually used it a little bit. Not much. I've only had it for a few days. It is Ozark Trail. If you can see, it's kind of getting scuffed up already. I did do some light batoning with some oak. I don't suggest that. Do not use your folding knives to baton. It's not safe. I am a trained unprofessional. So, it did not come sharp. It took me overall to be able to cut paper, slice a piece of paper cleanly. It took me a good half an hour altogether. After about 20 minutes, I got a rough cut on a piece of paper. But that's about it. It took some effort to make shavings, and after about, general rule of thumb is a hatful of shavings. After about a half of a hatful, you could tell the knife was dull and I had to resharpen it again. So I imagine that this will be kind of on the same lines as this. It'll be functional if as long as you're not using it for hard use. But that's it for that. So yeah, it definitely came with some stuff that's definitely going to be useful. This stuff, the cordage, the little clip thing, and the bracelet, if for nothing more than the cordage aspect of it. The ferro rod and scraper, definitely. The whistle, yes. This other stuff, I guess if you were in your car or something, but if you're in your vehicle, you should probably have a little bit more of a kit than this. So you should have a little bit better, toolkit than just these. I mean, something's better. The rule of thumb is something is better than nothing. But the more you have that you can depend on, the better off you're going to be. Because in an emergency situation, I'm a firm believer in your mental state is also extremely important. So, if you got a bunch of stuff and you haven't tested it out to know if it's going to work and it doesn't work, your mental state comes down. And you're already in a bad state of mind because you're lost or you're hurt and you need help. And there's no one around immediately to help you. So that automatically is going to trigger a little bit of a panic. So you need to be able to stay calm. And one of the things to help you stay calm is to have the right stuff on you to hopefully be able to do that. So, if that means you carry a small backpack, even if it's places then carry a small backpack. The last video I did was a belt kit. There's variations of that. You could get a small, one of those mini deployment packs, put it on a belt kit, throw a pair of suspenders on there if you don't want to carry a full backpack. A bottle bag kit with a couple of little pouches and some extra stuff in it, to make a shelter and, something to make you feel better, some coffee, some tea, some bouillon to help your stomach a little bit so, the rumblies don't get going. So anyway, so that's it. That was what was in the thing. Like I said, at some point, I'm going to get out. I'm going to test the fire making stuff, and we'll give the knife a good test run. And we'll keep the pen. Put the pen in a kit where they keep it with a Write in the Rain notebook. And so that's it. A little bit long, sitting around the table. I apologize, but that's it. That was what was in the advent calendar. That is my breakdown of the usefulness of some of it, and hope you enjoyed it. And but too, really quick, I just want to add, keep in mind that, like I said, none of this stuff is going to be top of the line. So this is not going to be 550 cord. This is probably maybe going to hold, maybe 25, 30 pounds at most. So you need to keep that in mind and not get carried away. And, if you go to use this and you're trying to use your body weight and make a hammock out of it, it's not going to hold you. even if you weigh 100 pounds. Again, same thing like with this. As long as you're not nicking it up, it might be okay. Would I be willing to risk it? No. You could go to Walmart, and for $3.99 you can get a two pack of plastic ones, or for $4.99 you can order a titanium one. That's definitely going to be food safe. You're not going to get yourself sick, because you don't want to get yourself sick on top of already being hurt or turned around, lost in the woods. That's why I say, with stuff like this, put it together. You should know your environment. Know what's going to work for you. Make your kit as big or as small as you want, but base it on stuff that you have used and you know is going to work in your area. That's going to work for you. And it's also going to be on your skill set. When I was younger, there was times I went out with nothing more than a knife, even with some friends, just to see if we could do it. And but we kind of grew up around the woods, so we knew we could make some fishing line and catch fish. If you're not used to doing that, it might not be the best thing for you to just think that if you get hurt or something that you gonna just know how to do that. Go out and practice that stuff. Anyway, that was it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.